No se suponía que nadie supiera esto. It was supposed to be buried, sealed by men whose names are now carved into court statues. They thought they could erase it. They thought that fire and fear would be enough to hide the truth. But the truth doesn't burn. August 12, 1847. Magnolia Creek Plantation, Mississippi Delta. The air was so thick that you could drown in it. And inside the big house, a scream broke the night. No era el grito de un parto, era el grito de la imposibilidad. Dana, the midwife, dropped the basin when she saw what she had brought into the world. Tres niños, trillizos, nacieron de Catherine, la esposa del coronel. The first was a pale and perfect child, the colonel's heir. The second one was a dark-skinned boy, black as the river mud. The third, another child with dark skin, was a perfect and impossible echo of the second. 3 kids, 2 parents, and a big secret. How did this go missing from history? Dentro de las 72 horas siguientes a esa noche, 4 personas estarían muertas. En 2 semanas, 17 más desaparecerían sin dejar rastro. Los registros del condado de ese mes no solo se perdieron, sino que fueron sellados por orden del propio gobernador, guardados en una caja de plomo y escondidos en una bóveda durante casi un siglo, que se suponía que nunca debíamos saber. Porque lo que esos documentos finalmente revelaron sobre un raro fenómeno médico no era nada comparado con lo que ocultaban sobre una conspiración de silencio, una guerra psicológica calculada y una rebelión que nunca fue registrada en ningún libro de historia. Fue un acto de venganza tan profundo que destrozó una dinastía. No comenzó con el nacimiento, comenzó con el silencio aplastante y opresivo de la casa en Magnolia Creek. 4,000 acres de algodón asfixiando la vida de la tierra, 263 almas esclavizadas alimentando un imperio de oro blanco. Y en el centro de todo, la gran casa, un monstruo de estilo neogriego con 6 columnas como huesos blanqueados que miraban al delta. Dentro vivía el coronel Richard Beaumont. Y para entender lo que sucedió, primero debes entenderlo a él. No era solo un dueño de plantación, era una fuerza de control absoluto. Había heredado la tierra a los 29 años, después de que su padre, un hombre de simple brutalidad, sufriera un derrame cerebral fatal mientras golpeaba a un jornalero. Richard era diferente. Él era frío. Donde su padre era una tormenta, Richard era el vacío que viene después. Medía 1,90 metros, con cabello plateado prematuro a los 34 años, y sus ojos. La gente que lo conoció escribió sobre sus ojos. Eran de un gris pálido, casi incoloros. Un capataz, un inmigrante alemán llamado Klaus Hoffmann, escribió una vez a su hermano: mirar a los ojos del coronel es como mirar un pozo que no tiene fondo ni agua, solo una caída interminable hacia la nada. Anhelaba la pureza, pureza de algodón, pureza de linaje, pureza de poder. Creía que el mundo estaba dividido entre los fuertes, que hacían las reglas, y los débiles, que eran consumidos, y su esposa. Él creía que su esposa era débil. Catherine Strafford venía de la vieja guardia de Charleston, una familia cuya riqueza provenía del arroz y el comercio doméstico de seres humanos. El matrimonio, por supuesto, fue un acuerdo, una fusión entre el algodón del Delta y la influencia de las tierras bajas. Ella tenía 22 años cuando llegó a Magnolia Creek. Hablaba francés con fluidez, era hábil con el pianoforte y estaba completamente desprevenida para el aislamiento. El delta del Mississippi, en 1847, no era solo un lugar. Era una prisión construida de barro y paranoia. La ciudad más cercana, Vicksburg, estaba a 64 kilómetros río abajo, y solo se podía llegar en barco de vapor o por un camino que se desvanecía en el pantano durante meses. Las pocas familias de plantadores en el condado socializaban solo entre ellas, se casaban entre sí, compartían negocios y un frente unificado aterrador contra cualquier amenaza al sistema. La reputación lo era todo. A whisper of scandal or a sign of weakness could mean social exile or something worse. Catherine sabía estas reglas. He knew how to smile at dinner while pretending not to hear the screams of the barracoons. He knew how to deal with the 6 domestic slaves with calm and distant authority. She knew her only job was to have a child, an heir to the Beaumont name who would inherit the land and keep the dynasty going. And in this he had failed. There was a rumor that the land itself was cursed, a whisper from the Choctaw, who had been kicked out of it decades before. People said that Magnolia Creek, the creek, didn't flow into the river. Instead, it flowed into the ground, into a shady spot. They said that the land wanted a price, and the Beaumonts paid it. They paid it with the lives of other people until the land finally came to collect from their own house. Richard Beaumont gobernaba un mundo cerrado, una fortaleza de paranoia. He was obsessed with his legacy and the son who would prove the dominance of his own lineage. Why, cuando Catherine no pudo concebir en el primer año, su impaciencia se agrió en algo frío, algo peligroso. Ella se quedó embarazada en el verano de 1844. She had a hard time with the pregnancy because she was always sick, but she got through it. She thought that a child would soften him up and give his marriage a reason to exist beyond the cold math of the dynasty. She had a girl named Margaret in March 1845. Era pequeña, había nacido un mes antes y lloraba débilmente, pero Catherine la amó con una ferocidad que la aterrorizó. No sabía que podía sentir así. He barely left the daycare for 3 weeks. She breastfed the baby herself, even though the colonel kept telling her to hire a nurse. She rocked her to sleep at night while singing songs from her own childhood in Charleston, Era feliz. On April 8, 1845, Catherine woke up to a silence that made her feel bad. Margaret was cold in her crib. La bebé había muerto durante la noche. No marcas, no pelea. El médico que fue llamado desde Vicksburg lo llamó muerte de cuna, una tragedia inevitable. Catherine, on the other hand, knew. She knew it. I had heard the colonel come into the daycare around 2 a.m. She had been in that state of half-consciousness of being a new mother, with every nerve alive to the baby's breathing. He heard the floorboards creaking, a sound he knew as well as his own name. He heard the crib creak slightly. Lo escuchó quedarse allí en la oscuridad por un minuto entero, lo escuchó irse. No había escuchado a la bebé llorar, ni una sola vez. She had been too tired to get up, thinking she was just checking on her daughter. Margaret se había ido al amanecer. Catherine no dijo una palabra. What could I say? No tenía pruebas, solo la certeza de una madre. Solo el recuerdo de esos pasos y el silencio que siguió. Who would believe him? This was Mississippi in 1845. La autoridad de un hombre sobre su hogar era total. Si el coronel había decidido que su hija era demasiado débil, demasiado decepcionante para valer el esfuerzo, ese era su derecho. Pero el conocimiento la cambió. It broke something inside of her. She went through the stages of grief. She wore black and accepted condolences. But she started to see her husband for who he really was. Not a strict man, not a product of his culture, but a monster. Ella se quedó embarazada de nuevo a finales de 1845. This time, I was scared. She only ate what she made herself, locked her door at night, and didn't trust anyone. Pero el embarazo terminó en un aborto espontáneo brutal a los 4 meses. The doctor shrugged again and said, "These things happen, especially after the trauma of losing a child." But Catherine remembered. She remembered the strange metallic taste in the tea that the colonel had brought her the night before the cramps started. Nunca le había dado té antes. No lo hizo de nuevo. By the spring of 1847, their marriage was a sham. They only talked when they had to. They showed up at church, a perfect picture of Southern dignity. But the house had turned into a Cold War, and Catherine was losing. She was stuck, a prisoner in a silk dress. And then he saw Solomon Tutwiler. He wasn't what you would expect from the plantation's foreman. La posición de capataz, un esclavo designado para administrar en otros esclavos, generalmente iba a hombres de pura intimidación física. Solomon was tall, almost 1.98 meters, but he was thin and had long, smart fingers. He had been bought at the age of 15 from a plantation in South Carolina. The bill of sale said that the buyer could read and write, which was a dangerous thing to do. But the colonel saw potential, not human potential, but economic potential. Solomon Tutwiler, who was 24 years old in 1847, was in charge of the day-to-day operations of Magnolia Creek. Hoffman le decía a Hoffman que le decía al coronel, pero en realidad, Solomon tomaba las decisiones sobre el trabajo y la logística. It kept the plantation's accounting books, who made what, who was sick, and who didn't meet their quota. He could figure out how much money he would make, guess how people would act, figure out which slave was most likely to run away, and know exactly how to stop them. Los otros esclavos lo aborrecían. They hated him with a purity that went beyond normal resentment. Solomon no solo estaba haciendo cumplir el sistema, él lo entendía y lo manipulaba. He told people about escape plans before they happened. He gave out punishments with a cold, clinical efficiency that was worse than any rage. He survived by making himself necessary. He had more freedom than anyone else. El coronel podía ir a la casa principal, a los barracones, e incluso a las plantaciones cercanas para hacer negocios. He wore better clothes and ate better food. Era, a su manera, el hombre más poderoso de Magnolia Creek después del propio coronel, y era el más peligroso, pero no por las razones que nadie asumía. He was playing a game that was so long that no one else could even see the board. Catherine se dio cuenta de él, de verdad, en diciembre de 1846. Estaba repartiendo regalos de Navidad en los barracones, un ritual paternalista que no le gustaba pero que tenía que hacer. People who were enslaved lined up, took their gifts with dead eyes, and acted humbly. But when Solomon got closer, he looked at her. He really looked at her. Not with hate or submission. He looked at her with respect, as if he could see beyond the performance, as if he could see the grieving mother, the poisoned wife, and the prisoner. Como si supiera lo que pasó con Margaret y lo que pasó con el té. It only lasted a second. Then he looked down, thanked him, and kept going. Pero esa mirada rompió algo. She started to notice how calm and efficient he was, how scared he made her, and how strange it was that the colonel depended on this man who was, by law, just property. In January, she set up her first private conversation. Dijo que necesitaba ayuda para organizar la biblioteca de su difunta suegra. He knew that Solomon was the only slave on the plantation who could read. The colonel agreed with him and thought it was a good idea. Solomon legó un frío martes. They worked in silence for an hour. Then, with a shaky voice, Catherine asked, "Did you choose this life, Solomon?" He stopped writing. She let go of the pen. "Señora," he said in a calm, clear voice, "I'm not sure I understand the question." "Esto? Ser el capataz? ¿Te ofreciste a hacerlo?" A long break. "Señora, me asignaron en eso. El coronel decidió que sería más útil aquí que en los campos después de que descubrieron que podía leer." "¿Y has tenido éxito?" Solomon finalmente miró hacia arriba, y sus ojos eran tan profundos y fríos como los del coronel. Pero no estaban vacíos. Estaban llenos. "Me he mantenido vivo, señora," dijo. "I'm not sure that counts as success." The truth of that was the first real thing I had heard in years. It almost breaks. Over the next few weeks, she found more things for him to do around the house, like sorting mail and organizing closets. El coronel no se dio cuenta o no le importó que los precios del algodón estaban bajando, and they talked carefully, in riddles. She knew that he was born in Charleston, that his mother, who taught him how to read, was sold when he was 7 years old, that he had been on 5 plantations before this one, and that he survived by being smarter than his masters and understanding their system of power better than they did. He knew she was scared of her husband, thought the colonel had killed her daughter, and felt trapped. "¿Por qué no huyes?" le preguntó ella un día de marzo. "Eres inteligente, te mueves libremente." Solomon almost smiled. "Smart slaves don't run away, ma'am. They know the numbers. For everyone who makes it, 99 are caught and tortured as an example. People who are desperate run away. Yo prefiero sobrevivir." "So you just accepted it?" "No dije eso," dijo, y sus ojos se hicieron de repente más intensos. "I said I wouldn't run away. No dije que no me resisto." Catherine se dio cuenta de que estaba embarazada de nuevo ese mismo día. This time would be different. But there was someone else, a shadow in the cotton fields. If Solomon was the mind, Elias was the fire. He was everything Solomon wasn't. No era un capataz, era un jornalero, el primero en la cosecha. No era delgado, era puro músculo. Tenía marcas de los latigazos que había recibido, no porque fuera lento, sino porque era desafiante. No sabía leer, pero podía leer el cielo, el agua y los corazones de los hombres. Era un líder diferente. Solomon controlled the slaves through the master system, while Elias led them through a peaceful spiritual rebellion. He was a secret preacher. He held meetings deep in the swamp at night, under the cypress trees, where he talked about Moses and freedom, not in the next life, but in this one. The colonel hated him, Hoffman was afraid of him, and Solomon respected him and kept his secrets. Elias represented a different kind of power, a raw and basic power that the colonel's accounting books couldn't explain. And Catherine had seen it too. Lo había visto permanecer impassible mientras Hoffman lo reprendía. He had seen how the others looked at him when the colonel walked by. Él era, a su manera, tan peligroso como Solomon, y era la segunda parte del plan. Lo que Catherine hizo después rompió todas las reglas. No le dijo a nadie sobre el embarazo, ni al coronel ni a Solomon. For weeks, she lived with the secret, a cold knot of fear and determination. He knew what this child meant. If it was a son, the colonel would have an heir. He would shape it into another monster, another Richard Beaumont, and she would be even less important. If it was a daughter, or if it was weak, she remembered the quiet in the nursery and the metallic taste of the tea. She couldn't, and she wouldn't let that happen again. He needed a weapon, something to break the colonel's obsession with purity, something to bring about chaos. En la biblioteca, mientras estaba supuestamente catalogando, encontró un polvoriento texto médico francés de 1823. Describía un fenómeno que se consideraba casi mítico, la superfecundación, the possibility that a woman could conceive twins or even triplets from 2 or 3 different fathers if she had relations with multiple men during the same fertile window. The book called it a 1 in a million anomaly, a biological impossibility. Catherine, on the other hand, saw it as a path that was hopeless, unhealthy, and scary. It was a plan that came from both madness and genius. If I could muddle the lineage, if I could make things uncertain, if I could add a variable that the colonel's rigid mind couldn't figure out, I might be able to save a child. Or maybe he could just set the whole system on fire and burn it to the ground. She was already dead. This was just a way for her to take her prison with her. In May, he got close to Solomon. No en la biblioteca, sino en el ahumadero, un cobertizo en desuso al borde de la propiedad. Estoy embarazada, le dijo, con voz inexpresiva. Es del coronel. El rostro de Solomon se mantuvo como una máscara perfecta. Congratulations, ma'am. Don't say congratulations, she whispered, her hands shaking. I want help. I want to make things confusing. Quiero proteger a este niño haciéndolo incierto. He understood right away what she was asking for and why. Vio toda la estrategia desesperada. Lady, he said in a voice that was hard to hear, do you understand what you are asking? Esto es la muerte para mí, para usted, para el niño. Solomon, I'm already dead. He killed me when he killed my daughter. Le estoy pidiendo que me ayude a defenderme con la única arma que tengo. He looked at her for a long time. ¿Es para salvar a un niño o es para venganza? Both, she said. Does it matter? Yes, he said. Revenge burns the person who lights it, but survival is different. Esto es supervivencia. He nodded once. When? But Solomon wasn't enough. The plan was too weak. A child, a different child, could explain or hide. But 2, that was the end of the world. He found Elias the next day. It was harder. Él estaba en los campos. She waited until nightfall when he was walking back to the barracks alone. She came out from behind the trees. He stopped, and his hand went right to the small knife he had hidden in his belt. Senora Beaumont, he said in a low voice, you are far from home. Te necesito, Elias, dijo ella. He laughed, a short, bitter sound. Help, la misma ayuda que Solomon me dio. His eyes narrowed. He knew about their meetings with Solomon. Por supuesto que lo sabía. Él sabía todo lo que pasaba en esa plantación. Solomon juega el juego del amo, dijo Elías. Yo no. Esto no es un juego, dijo Catherine, las palabras saliendo a borbotones. Estoy embarazada del hijo del coronel. I think he killed the first one. I think he poisoned the second one. No voy a dejar que tenga esto. She told him about the plan, the French medical book, and the idea of superfecundation. She didn't ask him to save her. She asked him to join her and help her plant a seed of chaos so deep that it would destroy the colonel's world. Elias la miró, en esta mujer blanca, pálida y temblorosa, que tenía su vida en sus manos. He saw the hate, but he also saw the desperation, a hate that was like his. Do you want to profane your husband's lineage? She whispered, fully understanding the true depth of her plan. Do you want to use your stomach as a weapon? Yes, she said. Will you help me? He looked up at the sky and the first stars that came out. Nos matará a todos. Ya nos está matando a todos, said Catherine. Just slower. Elías miró a ella de nuevo y sonrió por primera vez, una sonrisa de verdad, espantosa. Yes, he said, I'll help you. Lo que pasó después no fue una aventura, no fue amor. It was a war ritual. On May 27th, 1847, the colonel was in Vicksburg meeting with his bankers. Hoffman estaba a cargo de una excavación de drenaje en el lado lejano de la plantación. Catherine y Solomon se encontraron en el ahumadero abandonado, como habían acordado. El aire estaba lleno de polvo y el olor a humo de nogal viejo. It took less than 20 minutos. Neither of them spoke. It was clinical, a transaction, an alliance sealed in the most intimate and dangerous way possible. Solomon ayudó en ajustar el vestido de ella con la misma cuidadosa eficiencia que usaba para contar pacas de algodón. Lo siento, dijo. No lo sientas, dijo Catherine, su voz hueca. Ambos somos solo propiedad, haciendo lo que debemos para sobrevivir. Ella lo dejó allí y se fue, no a casa, sino más profundo en el bosque, hacia el pantano, hacia el lugar donde Elías le había dicho que se reunieran. Esto fue diferente. No fue en un edificio. It was under the open sky on the wet ground, surrounded by cypress trees dripping moss. Elías estaba esperando. No había cálculo en sus ojos, solo una especie de furia solemne. Esto no fue un negocio. It was a swear. It was a ceremony of challenge. It was a holy act for him to get back the only thing the master stole from him every day. The right to create. It was quick. He was desperate, and it was over. Catherine came back to the main house just before sunset. She took a shower and got dressed. She ate dinner alone, with the house slaves serving her who didn't see anything out of the ordinary. That night, the colonel came back from Vicksburg. He was in a bad mood. Los precios del algodón estaban bajando. He ate in silence, drank half a bottle of brandy, and then went to his study. He didn't go to his room. Catherine was awake, with one hand on her stomach, feeling the life or lives inside her. He had done it. He had made his weapon. She had started a war that her husband didn't even know was going on. He had crossed a line that he could not go back from. In 3 hours, she had betrayed her husband, her race, her class, and every law of God and man that held her world together. And for the first time since his daughter Margaret died, he slept. He slept the deep, dreamless sleep of the truly damned or the truly free. No sabia qual. I only knew that the house was no longer quiet for him. It was also hers. Now he had his own secrets, and they were strong. They were getting bigger. The heat and pregnancy got worse in June and July. El verano del Delta era una entidad brutal y sofocante. The slaves worked hard, and the cotton grew. El coronel se enojaba cada vez que bajaban los precios. It became more unstable. He started to personally oversee the punishments, watching the whippings with those flat gray eyes. The plantation's paranoia grew stronger. Everyone was watching everyone else. Catherine played the part of the delicate pregnant wife. She rarely left her rooms, saying it was too hot. Pero ella estaba mirando. Vio a Salomón. He saw Elías. And she saw something new, a new way for them to talk to each other. Antes, la casa y el campo, la mente y el espíritu eran dos polos de la comunidad esclava. They were polite, but they kept their distance. Ahora estaban juntos. She saw them, but only for a moment, behind the barns, a quick, whispered exchange and a shared look across the yard. Los accidentes de Solomon se hicieron más frecuentes. Herramientas que se perdían. A small amount of oil for lamps that was going bad. A message to Hoffman that got lost. Elias en los campos parecía saber cuándo iban a pasar estas interrupciones. Sus grupos de trabajo estarían en el lugar correcto para aprovechar la confusión, para ganar una hora de descanso, para asegurar un poco de comida extra. They were working together. Su venganza personal se había convertido en otra cosa. It had become the spark for a much bigger, older plan. He was able to talk to Solomon one afternoon. He was bringing accounting books to the study. She stopped him in the hallway. ¿Qué están haciendo? He whispered. Mi trabajo, señora. No, you and Elias. They are planning something. Anything else? Solomon miró por el pasillo. Señora Beaumont, usted no es la única que quiere ver este lugar arder. He only gave us one reason to speed up the schedule. What schedule? Pero él ya se había ido. The words chased her. Speed up the schedule. He realized, with a shiver of fear, that his plan, his desperate biological bet, had accidentally led to a real and organized rebellion. Solomon había estado planeando esto durante años, no solo una fuga, sino un levantamiento. He had been waiting for the right time and the right person to come along, and she had just given it to him. The birth of their children. It wasn't just her crisis, it was his too. Era la señal, el fósforo que encendería todo el campo de algodón seco de Magnolia Creek. Ella ya no tenía el control de su plan. Era solo una pasajera, y el nacimiento era el acantilado. On August 8th, just 4 days before the birth, the final spark lit up. A 15-year-old house slave named Ruth. It was quiet and out of sight. The colonel called her to his office. Bess, the main house slave, found her bleeding and with a broken dress an hour later. The colonel was pouring a brandy with a calm face. Bess le dijo a Ruth que no dijera nada y la limpió. Silence was survival. Pero Solomon no estaba en la sala de estar cuando llegaron. He saw Ruth's face. He saw the blood. Vio el horror en blanco y destrozado en sus ojos. And something in him, the cold, calculating survivor, finally broke. That night, Solomon met Elias in the swamp. Ya no era solo sobrevivir, ya no era escapar. It was about justice. It was about finishing it. El asalto a Ruth, junto con la inminente e inevitable crisis del nacimiento de Catherine, el cronograma ya no se aceleraba. It was now. The plan was set. The signal was agreed upon. Esperarían el nacimiento. They would wait until the house was distracted and weak before claiming the land or dying in the process. On August 11th, just after sunset, Catherine had her first contraction. I was in the music room pretending to read. The book fell out of his hands. Bess, the house slave, saw her. "I'll go get the midwife, ma'am. And what do I tell the colonel?" "No," Catherine said. "Not yet to the colonel. Dina only. Tell him I left early. Don't tell him until you have to." Bess asintió, con los ojos muy abiertos. He knew that this was the night. Dana, the old slave midwife who had given birth to half of the plantation's babies, came. She looked at Catherine. "Señora, tomará un tiempo, pero ya viene." The hours went by. Las contracciones se hicieron más fuertes, una tras otra, como una ola implacable y desgarradora. Catherine se agarró a los postes de la cama con los nudillos blancos. Abajo, el reloj de pie marcó la medianoche. Bess le dijo al coronel. He was drinking in his study. "How much more?" he asked, angry. "Hours, sir. los primeros bebés a menudo. This isn't his first, she said. Se sirvió otro brandy. No subió. Esperó, como se espera un informe de la cosecha. At 2 in the morning, Catherine's screams echoed through the house. Solomon los escuchó en los barracones. Salió de su cabaña. Miró la cabaña de Elias al otro lado del camino de tierra. Una sola vela parpadeó en la ventana. Era la señal. Solomon comenzó a caminar, suave como una sombra, de cabaña en cabaña. Esta noche, susurró en cada puerta, cuando escuchen la campana estén listos. A las 3:15 de la mañana, Dana dijo, «Es hora, señora». Push. Catherine se esforzó, gritando un sonido animal y crudo. El primer bebé salió rápidamente. «Un niño, señora», Dina said with a smile, relieved. Little, but healthy, crying hard, fuerte, el coronel estará. Pero otra contracción, más fuerte que cualquiera anterior, desgarró a Catherine. Ella gritó confundida. «Señor, ten piedad», susurró Dana, con los ojos muy abiertos. «Señora, hay otro». 10 minutos después, un borrón de dolor. El segundo bebé nació, otro niño. Dana lo limpió, y sus manos se congelaron. Se detuvo. El bebé era oscuro, oscuro como café tostado, oscuro como Elias. Catherine vio la cara de la partera. «Déjame verlo». Dana, temblando, le dio al niño. Era verdad. Su plan, it had worked. Pero, antes de que pudiera siquiera procesarlo, antes de que pudiera respirar, su cuerpo se apoderó de nuevo. Una tercera contracción que no se puede hacer. «No!» Dana cried, backing away. «No es posible!» «Lo es!» shouted Catherine, a final sound that ended the world, and the third child was born. Dina looked on, her face a mask of pure fear. Ella limpió al bebé, otro niño, oscuro, oscuro como Solomon. 3 kids, 1 white and 2 black. La habitación estaba en silencio, salvo por los gritos de los 3 bebés. Dana whispered, «Señora», and crossed herself. «What? What have you done?» And then the door opened. El coronel. He was standing in the doorway with a glass of brandy in his hand. He had come to see his heir. Sus ojos se movieron de la cara sudorosa de Catherine al bulto en su brazo derecho y a los 2 bultos en su izquierda. He didn't move. That awful expression of a flat, bottomless pit. He entered the room. He left his glass. He came closer to the bed. «Trillizos», he said. Her voice was strange. He looked at the first baby, the pale one, Casey Sanrio, a son. Then he looked at the other 2. He bent down to look at them like specimens. The silence got longer. The air in the room was so cold that it hurt. He looked from one dark face to the other. And then he went back to his wife. No gritó. No se enojó. «¿De quiénes son, Catherine?» Ella lo miró, su visión borrosa por el sudor y las lágrimas, en un extraño y aterrador alivio. La guerra había sido declarada abiertamente por fin. «Hay una condición médica. No». He cut her off with a sharp word, like a knife. «Don't insult me. I know what superfecundation is. Needs certain conditions». He stopped for a moment, his cold gray eyes boring into hers. «Requiere que te hayas acostado con otros 2 hombres. So, I ask you again, whose are they?» At that moment, she knew that the truth was all that mattered. La verdad era su única arma. «Uno», he whispered, his voice breaking. «Uno is from Solomon». The other one is Elias's. Ella había esperado que se rompiera, que la golpeara, que la matara. In response, he nodded slowly, as if she had just confirmed a complicated math problem. He understood. He understood the full extent of his betrayal. It was not just a crime of passion, but a conspiracy, a strategic and calculated desecration of his whole world, with the domestic slave and the field slave, the mind and the body. "Dina," the colonel said in a voice that was frighteningly calm. "Sal, don't tell anyone what you saw, or I'll cut off your tongue myself." The midwife ran away. Él se volvió hacia Catherine. "Esto es lo que sucederá," dijo con esa voz administrativa y plana. "Te dirán que estás loca. Histeria por el parto. You will be sent to a mental hospital in Louisiana. A nurse will take care of my first child, my son, here. He will be my heir, these other two." He looked at them with pure, scientific disgust. "Tonight, they will be taken to the barracks and drowned in the stream like a bunch of unwanted animals. No one will ever know that they were there." "Not," Catherine whispered as she hugged the three babies. "Can't you?" "Yes," he said. "I can, and I will." "And Solomon and Elias will be hung from the big oak tree at dawn, slowly, as an example. Catherine, you just killed them. And these things." He walked up to the two dark-skinned babies, and Catherine, tired, bleeding and torn apart, did the one thing he never expected. She fought. Gritó, no porque le doliera, sino porque estaba enojado. He kicked it. Le arañó la cara. "Don't touch them," she screamed. "No tocarás a ninguno de ellos." He grabbed her wrist and held it like iron. "You're hysterical," he hissed, and the mask finally broke. "Like them, you are property, and I will do with my property what I—" Fue interrumpido por un ruido, a sound that didn't belong, a deep and resonant touch, a bell. Bong. Everyone froze. The colonel, Catherine, and the babies crying. Bong. Magnolia Creek didn't have a bell. It used a horn for the fields. Bong. It came from the barracks. The colonel let go of Catherine's doll and went to the window. He looked outside, and his face finally broke. "God, oh my God," he whispered. The barracks were on fire. No una cabaña, todas. Una pared de llamas que se elevaba hacia el cielo nocturno. There were 260 slaves from the plantation in front of the fire, all silhouetted. No corriendo, no entrando en pánico, solo de pie, mirando la casa. "Es una señal," said the colonel. "Es la rebelión." A figure came out of the smoke and walked calmly down the road while he was talking. Tall and thin. Solomon. I was hitting a big, cracked iron sugar pot with a hammer. Bong. El coronel se fue de la ventana. The math was back. "Él planeó esto," he said. "Todo. El fuego, la organización. Usó tu condición como señal. Abajo, el sonido de cristales rotos y gritos. La rebelión había llegado a la casa. El coronel se fue corriendo a la puerta. Hoffman gritó hacia el estudio. "Barricada las puertas! Bring the guns!" He turned to Catherine and smiled. Una horrible expresión de boca abierta. "Tú has comenzado el apocalipsis, querida. Espero que estés feliz." He ran out of the room and locked the door behind him, trapping her. Catching her in the room with the three babies as the smell of smoke started to come in through the door. She was alone. She heard the first shot from below over the sound of her own children's crying. She was a prisoner on the front lines of the house war. The next hour was a mess. Solomon and Elias had planned it out perfectly. No asaltaron la casa en una turba caótica. They cut it up. Habían sellado las puertas y ventanas de la planta baja desde afuera, con el coronel y Hoffman atrapados adentro. Y luego prendieron fuego al primer piso. Hoffman, el capataz, había llegado al estudio. He had picked up a rifle and was ready to protect the accounting books and the proof of ownership. Pero el humo se metió por debajo de la puerta, espeso, negro y asfixiante. He realized too late that he was in a trap. He ran to the window, opened it, and got ready to jump. Solomon was standing on the grass below, looking up. Sostenía una pistola. No, Klaus, dijo Solomon, su voz tranquila sobre el rugido del fuego. Puedes saltar y romperte el cuello, o puedes quemarte, pero no vas a salir del estudio. Te traté justamente. Hoffman se ahogó. Me trataste como a un animal inteligente, dijo Solomon. Eso no es justicia, solo es buena gestión. Las llamas irrumpieron por la puerta del estudio. Hoffman gritó. Solomon se dio la vuelta y se fue. El coronel era más inteligente. Sabía que el primer piso estaba perdido. Corrió de vuelta por las escaleras hacia el tejado, hacia el paseo de la viuda. Desbloqueó la puerta de Catherine. La habitación estaba llena de humo. Catherine estaba en el piso, junto a la ventana, intentando conseguir aire para los bebés. Nos vamos, dijo, agarrándole el brazo. Al tejado. We can go down the columns. Catherine se rió mientras miraba a los 3 bebés en sus brazos. No puedes, he said. Give me my son. He walked up to the baby with pale skin. Catherine said, no. He stood up, his legs shaking. What did you say? He yelled, and the fire could be seen at the end of the hall. Dije no. Ella lo miró. This man had killed his daughter, poisoned her, and was about to drown 2 of his own children. No vamos contigo. You will burn here. Then we will burn, he said, his voice clear for the first time. But we won't go with you. You're crazy. He raised his hand to hit her. Pero ella solo lo miró. Richard, no te irás, she said. No puedes. No puedes dejar tus libros de contabilidad. He pointed down the hall to the study. Your proof of ownership. That's what you are. Es todo lo que eres. Morirás tratando de salvar el papeleo. Él la miró fijamente, y ella vio el cálculo en sus ojos. She was right. He couldn't let it burn. No podía dejar que se borrara la prueba de su poder, su riqueza y su identidad. He looked at her. She looked at the pale baby. He looked at the fire. And he made his choice. He turned around and ran, not up to the roof, but down to the study, where the smoke and flames were, and to his accounting books. Catherine escuchó el colapso del techo, a sound like the sky falling. And then, nothing. He had left. She was alone. The fire climbed the stairs. He took a thick blanket and soaked it in a bowl of water. She wrapped the 3 babies up. To the 3, holding them to his chest with broken sheets. He went to the window. It was too far away to jump. He ran down the hall. The main stairs were a nightmare. But the back stairs, the service stairs, were made of stone. They were still passable. He ran, coughing, with his bare feet blistering on the hot boards. He tripped down the stairs and through the burning kitchen, the same kitchen where Solomon had seen Ruth's broken face. Then he ran out the back door into the night. Cayó de rodillas sobre la hierba húmeda, aspirando el aire. La casa principal era una antorcha, una pira funeraria para una dinastía. Solomon and Elias were standing there watching it burn. They turned around when she got closer. Solomon miró los 3 bultos en su pecho. He looked her in the face. Él está muerto, ella dijo. Fue a por los libros de contabilidad. Solomon nodded. Lo había sabido. He knew his master better than his master knew himself. ¿Y tú? Dijo Elias con voz dura. ¿Qué te espera ahora, ama? Yo no, she coughed. No soy su ama. Solo soy Catherine. She looked at the two men, her co-conspirators, and the fathers of her children. Su plan funcionó. Esto no es el final, dijo Solomon, mirando el resplandor en el cielo. It's the beginning. The other planters will have seen the fire. They will be here at dawn with dogs and guns. What do we do? ¿Qué? Preguntó Catherine, mientras abrazaba a los bebés. Solomon said, We split up. She looked at Elias. Take your group. Go north through the swamp, which is the route we planned. I will take the others east, toward the river. Let's split up their chase. Elias agreed. Se dio la vuelta y miró a los 200 esclavos. He made a sign, and in perfect silence, half of the men, women, and children disappeared into the darkness. They left.